Greetings and welcome back, hikers, to my channel. I'm Bigfoot, back with another Q&A. Now, if you're looking for answers to your questions, leave them below in the comments. I will pull your questions and use them for the next week's Q&A. Now, before we get into the first question, let's give a shout out to the leaders in week 5 for the Million Step Challenge. We actually got another 3 people that hit their 1,000,000 steps here within the last week. Top 10 steppers for week number 5, number 10, Harry Seifert, 165,000 steps. Number 9 is Patrick Schroods at 169,000. Then we got number 8, Jason Lowe at 180,000. Freddie VDM, number 7 at $187. Then we got Clay Van Dyke at number 6 at 191,000. Then myself, Bigfoot, number 5, 221,000. Most steps that I've had so far in a week in the challenge. Number 4, Howie Miller, 226,000. Then rounding up our top 3, Phil White, 228,000. Terry Root, 242. And then number 1, Joe Grimaldi, 272,000 steps. Now, last week I mentioned that we had our first 1,000,000 stepper, which was Phil White. We have 3 more folks that have hit their 1,000,000 steps here within the last 7 to 8 days. Terry Root accomplished this last week. We got Joe Grimaldi that just got done about 4 days ago. And then today, which is Wednesday the 7th, I saw that Howie Miller accomplished that feat as well. So we got 4 folks that have hit the 1,000,000 steps. Now, the idea of starting this 1,000,000 step challenge really started with a challenge that another YouTuber, Viking from Between the Blazes, and myself decided that we wanted to do, which is the Winter 4-State Challenge. It is the 4-State Challenge on the Appalachian Trail that many people are familiar with, except we're doing it in the middle of winter. And it's next week already, so the time has just passed by. I am so stoked. I feel ready for this thing, and there'll be a lot more to come about Viking and I out on the AT here next week. Now, the Q&A that I'm doing next week is going to be specific to whatever questions that you have about our Winter 4-State Challenge. So if you have any questions about that, leave them below in the comments right now before you forget, and I'll answer as many as I can, if not all of them, on next Thursday's Q&A. Let's get in the first question. So I've had this question about a dozen times here in the last few weeks, and I got it a few more times on last week's Q&A, which is about the Christmas decorations. Now, you can't see them here because I'm actually in a hotel room. I'm traveling this week for work, but I am notorious for keeping up Christmas lights for quite a while. Typically, they stay up through the end of January. I am sad to announce that the Christmas decorations are finally down. So for those of you that loved it, you're gonna have to wait till next year. And for those of you that got sick and tired of the Christmas decorations in the background, well, that is going to be changing. And as a matter of fact, I'm actually working on getting a little studio room in my house, actually in the basement, all set up where I'm going to try to record all my videos down there. Not all of them, but most of them. It's going to have a cool little backdrop that I'm making and some other little things that I'm working on, but hope to have that up and going by sometime in the beginning of March. So stay tuned for that and all the other festive crap that we're going to be doing here on the channel. Now, this next question comes from something I talked about in last week's Q&A, which is about the podcast from Mighty Blue. Great podcast. I really enjoy them. Why haven't you been on Mighty Blue? Your 100-day AT through hike was epic. Also, if you didn't know, another favorite of mine is Ibtat. He is very NSFW, but extremely real and hysterical. Now, about Mighty Blue's podcast first, I actually will be on the podcast sometime maybe in the next 1 or 2 months. I actually already talked to Mighty Blue, and we kind of just had some dialogue back in December. So he's putting some stuff together and is going to send it to me, and then we're going to record the podcast. So that will be coming, and I'll be talking about a few things in that podcast. Now, in the other comment about Ibtat, that was in reference to some of my favorite AT vloggers so far to start off in 2018. And if you haven't checked Ibtat out, I will link his channel below. He is hysterical. He is not going to be for everyone. If you don't like swearing, he probably says the F word about 200 or 300 times in every single video. but it works for him, and I actually do find them very hysterical and interesting, and it's a different type of vlogger than what most people do. It's his own. So check him out. The next comment comes from Matt, which is in reference to our Winter 4-State Challenge that we're going to be doing, and really it's centered around the weather and how difficult the weather can give us with trying to finish our 4-state challenge. The question comes at the end of the comment, and the question is, how are you planning on combating the extra exertion and time while hiking your winter challenge? Any special footwear or conditioning to help? In terms of conditioning, I've been doing some snowshoeing back in my home state. Nothing outside of that, and doing a lot more running. Now, in terms of footwear, I think both Viking and I are going to be wearing our regular trail runners, but we are going to have a separate sock, kind of like a waterproof sock. Last year, Viking actually attempted the Winter 4-State Challenge, and one of the challenges that he came in with is just how wet his feet got. With the temperatures that we're going to see right now, which is going to be somewhere with the low in the mid-20s and the highs in the mid-40s, I don't know if we're going to see a ton of snow. I haven't checked really deep into what the trail conditions are, but the 4 or 5 days leading up to our Winter 4-State Challenge, it's hitting the 50s and the upper 40s. So if there is snow on there, most of it's going to be melted by then anyway, but the trail is probably going to be really wet. Now, what we talked about is wearing some waterproof socks just to help keep our feet a little dry, but I plan on just using my trail runners. I am going to bring some micro spikes just in case if there is some ice. If we get some rain the night before and then it freezes, the trail could be full of ice. That's probably what I'm more worried about than any snow, is the ice element. Now, the section of trail that we're doing, it is abnormal to see more than a couple inches of snow from my understanding that time of year. I think we're going to be good though with the snow piece, but overall we're stoked for this thing. It is going to have its fair share of challenges. We'll just kind of see what happens with weather. That's going to be the big deciding factor, but we'll be able to handle anything that Mother Nature throws at us. Hey Bigfoot, how much did your thru hiking the JMT cost? I'm wondering if I can afford a thru hike the month after I graduate from high school in 2020. Keep up the good work. All right, Dominic, I actually put everything together and actually looked at my actual spending and how much I spent. And it was right around $1,200. Now, what that $1,200 includes is my airfare that I had from Minnesota to Reno and back. That was about $500, plus the $50 in baggage fees. Then the cost for the trail food that I bought for my food to start off with, and then my resupply, was somewhere around the $80 to $90 range. Of course, you got to ship that food out there. I only had one resupply pickup. You have to pay for your resupply pickup. That was $25 to $30 right there. And then there's meals at the hostels in towns. Every chance I could to get a hot meal, I would do it. The meals at VVR were a little expensive. My tab at VVR was $144. That was included with the resupply pickup, the stay in the hostel tent, and all the meals, and I did a little bit of light resupply, just got some hot chocolate, things like that. Then of course you have to pay for your how you're going to get from wherever you fly into Yosemite National Park. I spent about $100. I paid someone $100 to get me from Reno down to Yosemite National Park, and then on the way back, someone picked me up and I just paid for his meals and things and lodging and things like that. So overall, $1,200 is what I spent. It's going to matter how many days that you're actually going to be spending on the trail, how you're getting there, and if you're going during peak or off peak. During peak, I think it's going to be a little bit cheaper because you have less costs to pick up your resupplies. You can find cheaper options to get into Yosemite National Park. Also, bear canister, you have to have a bear canister. So if you rent that in Yosemite National Park, it's like $5 or so a day, or it could be up as much as maybe $10, depending on which canister that you want. Now, if anybody else has done the JMT and you kind of have a rough figure of how much you spent, put them below. For Dominic, I would say about half the cost, more than half the cost, was just transportation, airfare, baggage fees, and then getting from the airport into Yosemite National Park and back. Hi Bigfoot, I was wondering if you ever experienced altitude sickness, or do you do anything to prepare for it when hiking high altitudes such as your JMT or Mount Whitney hikes? Now, for the JMT, this is the first time that I've ever been above 10,000 feet elevation. There's nothing that I personally did to prepare myself for the altitude. I didn't have any issues whatsoever with altitude sickness. Now, I did do a southbound hike, which makes it a lot easier on the body because you acclimate as you go south. On a southbound through hike of the JMT, you're starting off in Yosemite Valley, most likely, and you climb about 5,000 feet up to 10,000 in the first 11 miles. But coming out of Yosemite National Park, you have to stay at Little Yosemite Valley, which is about 2,500 feet up in elevation. And they do that for a reason, for a couple different reasons. But one of those things is to kind of help you acclimate with the altitude. So once you get over, though, the first 11 miles, you get to that 10,000 feet, you are gradually going up in altitude over the course of the next couple hundred miles. So you really adjust to your body, or your body rather, adjusts to that altitude and gets you prepared for that final ascent of Mount Whitney. Now, if you are going northbound and you're hiking all the way up to Mount Whitney, you probably want to acclimate yourself. Some folks that I talked to that was on the trail acclimated themselves over a couple different days. They would climb up from the Whitney portal, climb up to 11,000 or 12,000 feet, go back down, and then summit Whitney on the third day. It just kind of depends. If you have never climbed at that kind of height and you're going from like Whitney portal, which I think is like somewhere below 9,000 feet, it's like 8,500 maybe, all the way up to Mount Whitney, which is 14,500, that's an extreme amount of altitude that you're climbing in a very short period of time. And the chances of you getting altitude sickness is increased. So I would just be careful depending on which direction that you're heading, but that's worked for me. If anybody has any best bets or things that they've done with acclimating themselves, leave them below in the comments. Is the Z-Packs Arc Zip review coming soon? I'm buying a pack soon and would love to hear your opinion beforehand. Thanks. So I just purchased the Z-Packs Arc Zip. It's actually the pack that I'm choosing to bring with during most of my hikes here in 2018, starting off with the Winter 4-State Challenge. Now, I've only taken the Arc Zip on my day hike, so I have no backpacking experience with the Arc Zip overnight or for extended periods of time. I got the Arc Zip because I like the idea of being able to open up the entire body of the pack and taking something out or packing it in without stuffing it all in. So if there is something that I wanted to get to really fast, I could open it up and take it right out. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can just do it the traditional way too, because it does have the roll top on the top. When I talked to Redbeard at Trail Days, he said that that was kind of his go-to pack right now, and he's been using it for the last couple of years on his hikes and his through hikes. So that's kind of the thing that persuaded me to go to the Zip. It was really between the Arc Hull or the Arc Zip, but the Arc Zip, and I will be definitely doing a review probably sometime in a few months once I get a few trips with the Zip under my belt and can give you some great advice as to whether or not I recommend that pack. I have fallen in love with the cushioning of the New Balance Fresh Foam Heroes V2. Have you had any experience with the V3s? Based on online reviews, they seem to run smaller, which is a concern as I will most likely need to buy them off of Amazon during my AT through hike northbound 2018. I actually haven't had any experience with the V2 or V3 yet. I love the original versions of the New Balance Fresh Foam Heroes, and I've been using and wearing those all the way to about right now, and now those shoes are getting more and more difficult to find, at least my size. You can still find them, but the sizes are becoming more scarce. So I'm going to actually go up to the V2, and maybe I'll check out a V3, but the New Balance Fresh Foam series has just been amazing. It's my preferred hiking shoe. I have tried the Ultras, and I liked the Ultra 2.5 on Peaks. I did not like the 3.0s, and I haven't had a chance yet to try the 3.5s. My foot is wide though, and that's what I love about the Fresh Foam is the Heroes. That is it's really accommodating to my foot. I do get the wider size. I go with the 2E. I have done the 4E, but that's probably wider than I really need. The 2E seems to fit great. I will be checking out, like I said, the V2 and possibly the V3 here this year as well. So like riding a bike, do you look down the trail 20 feet ahead of you when you hike, or are you looking at your feet? I typically am looking down the trail when I'm hiking during the day, unless if it is really rocky. If there's lots of roots and rocks, I am looking closer to my feet and watching the placement of my feet. When I was going through parts of the AT Pennsylvania and pretty much the last half of the New England section. I found myself looking down most of the time when I was walking, just because it was very difficult to be able to make sure that I have the proper foot placement so I'm not tripping and falling, which I did do a lot of tripping and falling in New England almost every single day. Now in Pennsylvania kind of gets a bad name for Rocksylvania. It's really only bad the last about 100 miles or so of Pennsylvania, and it's nothing compared to the New England section. So don't let Pennsylvania scare you so much. That's what you hear the most about. Outside of that, if I'm hiking at night, I am probably looking about 10 feet in front of me, but my preference is to be able to look 20 feet or so down the trail to be able to just take in the views and enjoy the beauty of the trail. Last question, it's more of a statement about some pictures I posted last week in my Q&A at the middle and the end of my thru hike, which was, you should have kept the beard. I wish I could have, but for work, I can't have a really long ungroomed beard, or really a beard for that matter, in the line of work that I do with McDonald's. But the day that comes that I'm going to thru hike, again, I will be growing the beard back, and we'll see what happens, and maybe I'll keep it this time. But it's definitely something that I did enjoy, and I'll be lying if I didn't say it did feel good also to shave it off, because it was the first time I actually ever grown a beard in my entire life, and it was about time after 100 days to be able to see what my face looked like after the thru hike. Well guys, that wraps up this week's Q&A. Make sure that you leave your questions below for anything pertaining to the Winter 4-State Challenge. For next week, we'll do a 4-State Challenge Q&A special session for next Thursday. Now, me and Viking will be doing quite a few things. We're going to vlog our 4-State Challenge. We're kind of figuring out how we're going to accomplish that and what it's going to look like. So there's going to be some cool stuff coming up, both on my channel and Viking's channel, Between the Blazes. Make sure, if you're not already, subscribe to his channel. There's a lot of great things he does, and he's a great vlogger, and it's got some great tips and great videos out there for thru hiking and about thru hiking. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for everything else crazy here that we got going on the channel. So I'll see you guys next time, and remember to always follow Bigfoot.